Rosalie, very good to have you on here. Now just off the jump, we got to address what happened the other day. We tried to do this. Zoom went down. I looked into this.
Oh
Zoom
yeah,
went down. They didn't want us doing this podcast, but we said, no, we're going to do it. And here we are.
here we're back.
It is really good to have you on here. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for asking me.
Have the subjects or scenarios or topics that inspired you to begin making music, have those changed in any way from when you began to now? Or are there still some through lines that keep on uh, providing this creativeness for you?
I'm There's definitely a through line. I generally write about, I guess, my experience in the world as a human, and I not just on a personal level, but thinking about broader themes of human existence and struggles. And then I suppose how I process them or my view on them changes or matures, or becomes more informed, I guess, as I've gone through life, getting older and having more and more experiences. But the general themes, I think it's still a similar kind of concern I have about life.
Are you surprised that it has shifted your viewpoints, perhaps, or the way that you've matured within these topics or subjects or whatever it may be?
I mean, I can't particularly say like things have so much as like shifted in a drastic way. Um, Not to the extent of being surprised, but I do think in reflection sometimes like things that used to really, really trouble me. Um, I think now I can like face things more directly or more head on. Um, I think I have less anxiety around things, even though that's not speaking maybe so much about current events. But I think just with age and experience, things don't, certain things that maybe felt huge at the time, don't don't affect me the same way, if that makes sense. It's like all this is all very generally speaking. So I don't feel like I've like necessarily made a like giant shift in anything. It's just I think I have just more, hopefully more wisdom.
Do you try to find a balance when creating songs that both express how you feel and can also other people can glean something from it as well in their own lives? And is that difficult to find that balance?
Um, I mean, I think that if I try to just be like, I think honest, and I write songs, they're not necessarily 100% personal experiences. Sometimes they're other people's stories, sometimes it's a general story. But I think like being honest and with that like having some strangeness to what it is you're saying, I think people tend to relate to it because I think on some level we've all had experiences that are similar, even if it's not the exact same situation. I think that that having like a relatable theme is how people connect to it. So that yeah, that balance, it's like I think adding in things that might seem like it's very specific to a situation in a way like becomes uh, becomes more relatable, if that makes sense. Like
Hmm.
yeah, and it makes people feel maybe less alone too if they're like, "Oh, that weird feeling is something in a song now." I don't know.
Yeah, there's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
When did you become interested in music? Do you remember when that sort of happened for you?
Well, I grew up in a musical family, so it was just always there. My parents had a rock and roll band growing up. Um, I'm one of seven kids, and we all sang together. I do remember one of my earliest memories is kind of the first time I heard my own voice, like my own singing voice. I was probably 4 or 5, and I was at my friend's house, and they had this bathroom that had really tall ceilings, and I just remember like kind of starting to sing in there and having this thought of like, oh, I really like singing. I want to just, and this is my voice. Like how do I just became super interested on how to become a good singer and how to how to use it and from there, and so like growing up singing and making music with my family, it was a natural part of everyday life. So like I learned how to do harmonies just by singing with my sisters, and
In the bathroom, of course.
the bathroom is the best place to sing. It's, as long as it's got a little tile,
That's the key point there, tile.
and it's private, and so you can,
You can't do it in public. We should say that now. You
although,
can't be doing these in public bathrooms.
sometimes I've heard people sing in a public bathroom before. I usually smile anytime I hear somebody singing in public, or I think it's wonderful.
Now you said you're one of seven.
Hmm. Yeah.
Did any of your siblings go on to do anything with music?
Yeah, not in like a very public way, like myself, but my my brother um had a jam band for a little while. He's the baby of the family and is an amazing bassist and guitarist. So they used to play shows like when he was in college. Um, he has he's a young dad right now, so he's not doing that as much, but like yeah, other siblings play instruments. My one of my sisters, she in high school, like she was in band and she could play, like she played the oboe, the clarinet, the piano, whatever, like kind of could just pick up any instrument and figure it out. And I think now even she like plays piano, but she doesn't she's in school, she's in education, so but yes, no, nobody did it publicly, but everybody is talented, I should say.
I think it's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Who were some bands or artists that really resonated with you early on when you started developing your own voice within music?
Um, well, I I think the first tape I ever got was a gift from an older sibling. She gave me a Walkman and some tapes for Christmas one year, around when I was like 10 or 11. And she gave me Nirvana Unplugged, the MTV Unplugged tape. And I listened to that until it stopped playing. And that kind of opened up, you know, outside of like top 40 radio, which is what I still especially in the 90s, like R&B is what I was like listening to the most because growing up in the country, it's kind of like that's all I really had access to aside from my parents' musical taste, which I also liked, but on a yeah, on a personal level, like getting into like yeah, grunge in the 90s. So then Nirvana and um from there like into college, like Yola Tango is really influential. But also the traditional stuff and like the British folk bands that my parents were into, like that. Like Sandy Denny as a singer was really important, but also like the Cranberries. Like I love her voice and yeah, sort of like all that kind of music early on.
Yeah,
Kind of a mashup of like what I was listening to. But
it's a
yeah.
good mash. It's a good
Yeah.
mashup. Um, did did you feel like you were kind of being guided by your siblings in some of a sense, or at least early on with
I,
developing music taste?
yeah, I think so. Like my one sister Collie, she was very cool, like punk, like had mohawk and she lived in Detroit and so she was super influential on a lot of that. So yeah, her early seeds that she would plant for sure um helped guide and direct me and into places that maybe would have taken me longer to get to
Hmm.
those. But yeah.
Do you go back every once in a while to revisit
I'm,
these albums or songs?
I definitely, I don't think I've listened actually to like a full like Nirvana album in a long time. And I don't know why that is. I think I still like it. And I think like Kurt Cobain was brilliant. But I think it's just something where you know it so well, you kind of move on. But
Right, right.
I mean, I listen to Fairport from time to time for sure. And like Richard Thompson, still a huge fan. And yeah, it's like not an active thing. I think over the years, or if it's on, like I don't change a station, or if something's playing, like I'll still listen and enjoy it, and for sure like hear things differently than I did
Hmm. Right.
previously.
Do you feel like we'll take Nirvana Unplugged
Yeah.
for this example. Do you feel like that album or the songs from that album would impact you the same way if you had found them either earlier on in life or later on in life? Or do you feel like that was just something that really stuck out to you at that point when you came across it?
Yeah, earlier would be hard to say exactly because I think um even 11 is still kind of early. So I mean it maybe would have um but later I'm not so sure. I think that there's something about maybe kind of that age of like independence, and like I think also getting my own Walkman because like in a big family, especially growing up, we didn't have money. And I think whenever there was something that was my own that I didn't share with siblings, it was like a sacred object.
Sure.
And and it felt extremely special to me. And I think, around that age, it's just like you becoming more of an individual, consciously trying to really, figure out, like, whoa, who am I in this world? And especially I think when you are in a big family and I'm the fifth, so like having older, s- several older sisters, I think you develop faster in a way because you're just like you see by example. And so yeah, I think just that time was just like very potent. Like I was ready. I was like a sponge. Um, but I probably, different stages in life, you you probably would hear it, like I said before, like you hear it differently, and something that, like maybe just hearing the song as a cohesive thing, be like, oh, or like I like this melody because it's catchy, and versus like now I'm like, oh, I really like this good like this tone, or like this phrasing is really interesting to me. Like I pick things apart differently now, um, than I would before, whereas I just like, oh, I like this song. I can move my head to it. Yeah, you want to dance, and sometimes that's all it's about, and that's great too. Like it's the beauty of music. There's something for every mood.
Do you think you would have the same relationship with music if you weren't raised around it or that your siblings weren't, putting you on to new things?
That's the, question I ask myself often. Because, like even still, the conversations that I have with, my parents, my father especially, it's like it centers around music. It's like kind of one of those things where like this is the language that we had as a family. This is kind of, I don't necessarily want to like boil it down to is like this is how we had, got attention or validation, but it's just like part of our family. And so sometimes I'm like, I do ask myself that question. And it's one I don't have an answer to. Music is something that like I've always felt compelled to do it and to write songs and to play music in kind of a you know, broad approaches to it, and not just songwriting, a lot of different outlets for it. And so I don't know.
When did you get started playing music? When did that kind of and did you start with a band or when was your initial step into music making?
Other than like high school band class, I was
Yeah, yeah, outside of a
outside of that,
scholastic sense,
so
sure.
I started playing guitar around 13. Um, and I taught myself, but we always had guitars around, and so I'd, pick it up. I had like I think I bought it at like Best Buy or something, like the Beatles anthology, just tabs, chords, so like all the songs. So I started learning just some of the easier Beatles songs that I already, knew how to sing. And so that's when first started playing guitar. And then like the first band I was in was actually with my friend Jessie, and she played stand-up bass. And then it was with three older women who are all like adults, maybe my age now. And we were a bluegrass band, and um, so we played at local bluegrass festivals, and I played mandolin, not well. I couldn't do any of the licks, but I could I could chuck a chuck and sing harmonies,
It's a good
and
start, right?
yeah, it was definitely like, okay, this is perf learning like how to be on a stage, and my friend Jess and
Was
I,
that
we
always comfortable for you? Were you always comfortable on stage? Was that something that was just
yeah,
natural?
I was, and I was for a long time, and then I hit a weird period, and I think it's when I started to write my own music that I wasn't comfortable anymore, and I got really nervous about it. This is like when I actually was like, and I was old, older. I shouldn't have felt nervous, but I really did. I think it's like a vulnerability of, oh, this isn't just me singing and playing well. It's like I'm, this is something I've created. It's much more vulnerable.
Yeah.
I'm open to the opening myself up to criticism or rejection and all of that.
All
But
that good stuff, sure.
you gotta move through it and work through it. Um,
Was there a point where that really switched for you or you became comfortable or as comfortable as you were previously?
I think just doing more of it. Even now I still get nervous, especially if I'm playing solo. With the band, I don't feel nervous. But when I play solo, I'm very sensitive to like how to other people and how they feel. And so sometimes if you're just like feeling really open and raw and you get into a room and it's just you singing and playing emotionally charged music, I I'll feel nervous, and but I know how to use that feeling now. I know how to use those feelings of anxiety or nervousness as a a tool to to bring in your power and make a powerful performance, instead of letting it deflate me and wither away. So I don't know.
Now, would adding a mandolin into that process just be too much? It would just that's
Yeah, I don't
that's
know
it.
how to play it anymore.
When you were in that bluegrass band, what was that like for you? What was being a part of like a unit like that? Did you enjoy that aspect?
I did. I was trying to think how old I was at the time, but so like it kind of came out. Our family was part of a musical community in the small town that I grew up in. And my friend Jessie, who's in the band, her parents had bought this old Grange hall, and people would get together every weekend, every Friday night, and we'd all play music together. And a lot of the men kind of had the main, I don't know what the word is, but they were in bands and they performed and outside in the world. And so I think this like a lot of maybe the energy was like, oh well, we can all do this too. Um, but yeah, it was just I don't know, it was a lot of fun kind of figuring out harmonies, like bluegrass harmonies or something particular. And um, yeah, I think I just really loved singing so much that, and singing with other people is really powerful. And um, so yeah, I think it felt really good to sing. And it's kind of, in some ways, I mean, I was still a teenager, so, and I think having a friend who were around the same age that were doing it, like, I didn't really think about and I don't know if about being part of a scene or necessarily, or it just really
Right.
loved.
It was just something that you were a part of with your friend and with this community at
Yeah.
a greater scale, a grander scale. Yeah.
Yeah. And we just did covers. I don't think we wrote any songs. Maybe somebody had some originals. It didn't, and I don't think it lasted very long because I eventually went to college. Maybe it was like 9 months to a year of doing this. Um, but yeah, and I think in some ways too, it was like because it was with these other adult women who were really wonderful and cool. But we would just, we'd get together and practice. I felt grown up because we would have grown up conversations, and we would, be doing this like we're practicing together, and not feeling like they didn't treat me like I was a kid or anything like that. I mean, they didn't, it wasn't any like bad behavior or anything like that either, but it was just, I don't know, it felt very formative, I guess, of just being out in the world doing something that was separate from my parents. Um, yeah, being part of this thing with that we all centered around just like playing songs that we love to play. So I don't know. It was fun. It was just really fun.
Did you take any aspects from that time playing with those people within that community as well that was applied later on in your music career?
Yeah, I think more than anything, I think after that, like I mean, I was in other bands for sure, but we played totally different music. And so I think maybe, yeah, that feeling of being, yeah, in a band. And I still just love being in a band with other people, and everybody's focused on making the song and the music the best it can be in that moment. Um, which is always something you're kind of, you're chasing with making music with people.
When did you decide to make your own music under your own name? Was that after college or during college, sort of, or at least the initial idea of doing it?
Yeah, it was after, like under as Rosalie, that didn't happen till later. Like I was in other bands, and I had a long stint with a partner who he and I made just like a lot of uh improvisational experimental music that was kind of from all over, drawn from all over, and very just, create in the moment. Sometimes it would be song based with words, and other times it would be noisy, just kind of anything goes. And during that time I started on the side writing just for my own personal. I didn't share with anybody. It was my personal processing of feelings, emotions, just started things that started coming out. And I think also like as a contrast to doing this very just cerebral, you know, I don't want to say directionless, because there was definitely uh, a deep intent with making experimental music, but there's never,
Free
you never,
form, maybe.
yeah, free form. And so this was like, okay, I'm doing this exercise where I'm writing lyrics and I have a structure, and I can create, work and shape this thing that is the finished piece that I can perform again. Um, and so it was like during that time I started to make music. And then when he and I broke up, I recorded my first record.
Did you
So,
did you have that aspiration going back to college or even earlier on than that? Did you always have this aspiration of, oh, I want to make my own music at some point?
hmm yeah. And even with the freeform music, I always wanted to, we performed it a few times. I don't know, sometimes. And especially when we were living in Philadelphia, we we would play at like at DIY spaces. But we have a, decades worth of recordings. Oh, he has them, I don't have them. Just like
Someone
hours.
has them. It's they're out there
I hope
somewhere
they're out
on
there,
some
but maybe
pedestal.
not. Maybe they're gone. But it's just like hours upon hours, thousands of hours probably of music. And
Thousands,
I
multiple
mean,
thousands. Wow.
maybe I don't know. Like we played all the time for over a decade and recorded it. And when you're playing free form music, it could be an hour long
Sure.
time.
That seems so difficult though to recreate anything that would be previously recorded to recreate
Yeah.
that freeform sense in another span.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's ways to go about it where you don't really, it's like you can have a skeleton of, a concept of it, or like, okay, well, this is how it starts, and or there's this piece, but it's really just an idea. Um, but yeah, so that I always wanted to like do something with it because that's like music I still, I mean, I still now I've been playing like that in a solo capacity this past year. Um, but a good, many years went by where I didn't play like that. But I just like the music and the scene that I hung out with and the music I liked. And I wanted us to release our music, because one, it was really important to me. It was like a huge aspect of my artistic development. And it's what I had been dedicating a decade of my life to doing.
So
And we
just a
never,
really small portion, like just
yeah,
beginning. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And just like not, I want, just being part of a conversation and not any kind of like big way, but just, and also having like output is for me part of my process also of just like, okay, that's that project that's done. Now here's a thing I can focus on. But he didn't really want to release anything. And even when Silk Breeze, he had asked us to, release something. And this was after we'd broken up, but we were still friends. Um, we started to put together kind of a collection of music that we had recorded, and that, we're like, okay, this pulling from all, this thousand hours. And then when it got time to actually master it and submit it, he disappeared. So that's how I ended up releasing my first record, my first Rosalie record, because I was finishing that at the same time. And Tom Lax of Soul Breeze was like, "Well, why don't we just put your record out? I love it." So that's kind of, one led into an to the other in a kind of an unexpected way for me. But, you
Right.
know, it also, in some ways, it made more sense because I was becoming more active and performing, and to release mu like a debut record of a project that's dead is kind of silly. And maybe now, like if we did release something, just because people maybe know me now and know my musical world and language, it would shed some light on things, but I don't have any files, so maybe someday.
Now, when was that? When was that the release that was never released supposed to be happening, and as well as your first
hmm
release as Rosalie? When was that occurring?
So my first Rosalie release came out in 2016.
Hmm.
So this would have been, around that time, 2014, 2015 is when we were compiling everything. And yeah.
What was thinking about it now, what was kind of working on this more freeform ambient, perhaps that's may not be
Some
the right
ambient,
term.
it's always been hard for me to define because we really did kind of go all over the place. But
Look, it's thousands of hours. You're going to be touching on everything,
yeah.
bluegrass and
But yeah,
whatnot.
some other people would join us sometimes and they'd be playing, other instruments like bring horns or whatever. So garbage, you could play garbage if you wanted to, like literal trash, whatever, do whatever you wanted. So
Uh, Looking at that first release now, was there any sort of inspiration that you saw from that first project to what you were doing with under your own name?
I mean, y yeah, I still write songs starting out from like an improvisational, free-flowing way.
Mm.
That's like how I kind of connect with my creativity and just like let things flow. And then from there, I'll like go back and work on things. Um, and also, that approach to making music, I found it being to be like very spiritual, like connecting with some kind of source. You're opening yourself wide up, wide open so that you can get into that state where things flow and you're not like judging in the moment, um, or stopping yourself. And also like a lot of listening and intention. And so I think that ability to like open yourself up and have it be in connection to, the to those swirling emotions and feelings that we all have, like that is, I think, at the heart of all the music I make. Um, so yeah, for sure. And there's actually one or two songs that I've recorded that I did pull from that time. Like Tender Heart, which is off of No Medium. The last song was a song that is from the that the Freeform band that I'd like added to. But yeah, it's all there.
All of it's there.
Yeah,
Can't hide a single
still
piece. It's all out there.
still with me. Yeah.
um Looking back on it now, because as you previously mentioned, there's a little bit more higher stakes, or perhaps there was some nervousness earlier on when it was just you performing as opposed to performing in a band. Was there even less pressure when performing this more noise ambient style of music during that period? Was there even less of something that was, like, oh, I gotta be careful here, or wherever it may be?
It really varied sometimes because like when you play that kind of music, sometimes you crash and burn. And that's just the nature of it. And often it's like in situations where I don't know, things feel weird in the room or something. And
Mm,
so it's a sensitive organism, I guess, but um and like some days just like you can't get in it, you'll be in a weird headspace. And so that affects it all. And other times, yeah, I wouldn't feel nervous at all. That for sure playing that kind of music, it could be a roller coaster when you go to do it in front of people. But I think in some ways that was like a big growing and learning experience to like in front of people kind of go through this range of emotions because there's also this, there's no net to some degree of like
right, right.
where are we going to land with this if you know things go off track or we can't. find our way through. And that's like the sticking with it. You learn all these ways to ground yourself in it. And I think, yeah, it really
Without
helps.
a structure as well, which is just
Yeah.
so, yeah, very
Yeah. And like
difficult.
learn how to be brave in those moments and be patient. It's okay to like take a deep breath and remember like there are no rules. Part of it is giving an audience an unexpected performance. So like it can simultaneously tear you down and also give you a lot of confidence. So,
Hmm.
but I also,
Much like with bluegrass, of
yeah,
course.
of course, even like now, like playing, in with my band, with Mode Sound, I really love when music and songs like have that element of like you're walking a razor's edge, like are you gonna like pull it off like a wild guitar solo or weird tones? Is it gonna like go off the rails and then we can bring it back into a song? Like that's when it's like really exciting to me and magical and seeing live music. Like that's what I want to hear and see, and that's what I love to bring as a performer with a band. And the these folks that I'm playing with now, I think they really understand that and they love that as well. So that, I mean, that element and those lessons that I learned from, um, yeah, freeform music, that's like a huge lesson that's come through and a tool that I have in my kit.
Um, so jumping from an ambient sound into your own sound or
Mhm.
your own project, did you have any apprehension when kind of entering that sphere, or
Yeah,
were you ready for it for the most part?
I mean, yes, and I still, honestly, sometimes I still have apprehension. It's just in that way of like, I think the inner critic is more intense when you're like lyrics and there's meaning and like often misunderstood. You know, oft people are like, "Oh, you write love songs." I'm like, actually, not really. Yes and no. I mean, there's definitely love songs, but they're not necessarily romantic love. And uh, so like, that exists. I think the apprehension of just yeah, like, oh, I'm a singer-songwriter. There was a time where that felt like a derogatory term. And especially for like a woman, like people would make fun of that, trope or that stereotype. But I think there is yeah, like a vulnerability and an app that comes with that, an apprehension of putting yourself out there and singing like stuff that's like emotionally charged. Um, that you wrote that came out of your head. And um sometimes they're extremely personal and that's fine and sometimes it's not. It just yeah, I don't know. It putting yourself out there in any kind of public way, there's always an element of questioning this
Right, right.
this action.
Now what was the first release we'd mentioned it previously?
It's called Out of Love.
Out of Love, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, what was releasing that like when that was finally put out to the public? What was that like for you?
Um, I mean, I was excited. It was very like uh I felt like I'd, accomplished a goal that I'd had for a long time of releasing officially, a collection of songs on vinyl that I'd written and recorded, and it's primarily solo, and then my friend Gerhard Kerner plays drums and a little guitar on it, but that's it. And yeah, I don't know, I played some shows, did my first little tour, but it was, pretty like a small, within certain circles, people who would follow the label Silk Breeze knew about it, people in Philly, but Uneventful on the world stage, which is fine, was fine. I didn't have any like grand aspirations about it. I was more about um making art and wanting to kind of embark on the path. Um so yeah, I was proud of myself and proud of the work. And then it just started kind of an addiction for making more records, like being in the studio and thinking about recording became a whole thing, and wanting to make more intricate and developed recordings also. So I really love being in the studio now. I think that that's like it's such a fun process of creating a world of sound and um yeah.
Do you feel like that is there? I mean, is there any pressure to be like, oh, I have to be like churning out something if I'm in this space, or is it
Mhm.
more of like, oh, it's a blank canvas in which to create something that I want in exactly the way I want it?
I mean, there's definitely pressure to it because you're like spent like unless you have your own home studio, it's time is money.
Right.
So like you have to be to a certain point, or at least I've had to be at a certain point with the songs to make the most of the time. And also like other people's time is valuable, and so there is pressure for that. Um, but also like I try not to like have this like cranking things out, this assembly line, or like I have to keep making music, keep putting stuff out because I feel like that's a very like capitalistic way to be an artist, and I don't really want to start thinking of myself as like a machine in that way. And I don't know, yeah, I like to leave a lot of space open for inspiration in the studio for like other people's ideas and um yeah, just being prepared with as best as you can be going in and then having fun when you're there.
Yeah. When you leave room for other people to expand on an idea for a song, are you bringing these specific people in like I know what they're gonna bring or some variation of what they're gonna bring and that's what I'm looking for, or do you kind of give them more direction than that,
Um,
or is it circumstantial between each person?
for the most part, I mean, it is circumstantial, and I'll give direction like a feeling. I'll,
Mm-hmm.
I'll speak in like those terms, and but yeah, the people I like to work with and play with, it's like I like the way that they approach music and how they play and how they think, and so knowing that they're going to, do their thing on it because it's something that I wouldn't do or couldn't do necessarily. And yeah, there's a lot of trust there. And I think when you also can be generous with other people, like do what you want to do kind of feeling, like people will really give of themselves because it's, you know, they have their freedom too. Um, so yeah, it's like
Looseness within a structure sometimes.
for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Now going back to Out of Love, how long had those songs been in your world before finally putting them out onto this or getting them recorded at least?
um some for a while. 5 years, 5, 6 years. And then some were like newer ones that I kind of wrote closer to them. But yeah, there were, I think, a handful of them were old. But that I just been like, oh, this is a song I wrote, but I'm not going to share it with anybody, kind of.
Is it,
feeling.
it is it hard to put something aside that you had been working on? Is it that's too much? I gotta pump the brakes on that, or like that's not time to release that?
Yeah, for sure. And I've had songs that, I had written and then I there's on Bite Down, the song changes in the form. Actually written that for my second record, Trouble Anyway, but I was just kind of like, I don't know what this song is. And it took that time, which I'm trying to think how long that would have been, like 5 years. And I think becoming like finding Mode Sound and those folks to like approach that song together. So like having the other distance of time to maybe understand what I was right, because sometimes things come out and words come out and I'm like, I don't know what this means. And then a year or two later, like, oh, that's what that means. I get it now. And then I'm ready to like make it into a song or like ready to let it go and be like, this is what the song is, not this is just my idea for it. Because that's a big
Hmm.
part of it too, is like kind of letting go of the song. Because when you kind of, generally speaking, when I write a song, sometimes there's a period of, is this the final form of this piece that the world is going to hear?
Hmm.
Or do I want to approach it in a totally different way? And so,
And how often is, or what is more true in that sense for the most part? Is it that like yes, this is the final version, or no?
um, Mick, I say more, it's like, yeah, this is the final version. But
Mm.
then there's definitely times where I'm like, I wish we'd, I wish I'd done that. Or no, this isn't ready. Let's keep that pot simmering, or I'm gonna put that in storage and pull it back out. Um, but yeah, I'd say it's like a maybe 60-40.
Okay. I read on your Bandcamp that you make songs that take time in revealing their full power. This is kind of what we're describing here. That's one piece of this puzzle that
Hmm.
of songwriting, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean even like what things mean, and they change and shift for me over time as well. But I think that's what writing songs, like making them a living thing is, and so that they can be something different when you play them live. And there's there's room for people, your audience, to interpret the songs for themselves. And I think that's what can make things feel very connected.
Yeah, have you ever had to modify a lyric specifically because you just felt it wouldn't translate to the
Hmm.
listener, that it was too personal?
Probably. I'm trying to think of an example, but I think so. And I've also taken stuff out, or the last record, there were some things that I rewrote last minute. Um, and I can't think of specific. I just remember doing that like on a couple of songs.
It's happened, and we're just gonna
It's
trust you
happened,
on
yeah.
that. That
Yeah, it's happened. Or like taking out a verse because I'm like, it doesn't really,
fit.
it doesn't fit. Or yeah, it's not, it just, I think being more concise on this one is the way to go. So yeah, definitely there's editing, like the words, I think words are so important. If you're going to be singing words, um, then yeah, having them
Be
mean,
just so is
yeah,
crucial.
yeah.
Is that coming during the process of kind of improvisation, or just experimenting in the earlier stages of songwriting for you, or maybe later on when there's some sort of a structure to build off of?
Yeah, the editing definitely comes later because like the beginning stages, it's like kind of getting an more idea and feelings out. And from there, like I'll maybe have a phrase with a specific cadence and a melody. And that's like when I'm like, oh, more or less like a hook you've got, and you're like, okay, now I can build something around this phrase and this feeling, or yeah, or like, yeah, the flow of words. Then I can like make it into its final form.
Hmm.
That's when the editing happens.
Do you feel like there's more editing done to lyrics rather than instrumentation, or is it
Oh
pretty
yeah,
equal? Oh, okay.
for sure words. I mean, instruments, yeah, we'll try stuff out and but um I think overall it's words. That's what I've like at least personally, that's what it feels like anyway. Like I put a lot of pressure onto um that aspect of it.
Are you selective within the feelings that you share through these lyrics as well? Or
Hmm.
is it whatever the feeling is and then kind of modify the words?
Huh. I don't know, maybe a mix of it. Um yeah, I think sometimes I definitely have like, okay, I definitely want to use this these phrases and these words and that's important and so I need to kind of adjust the vibe of the song around that. Or be like, yeah, I don't know, yeah, these words aren't I should rephrase this because it's not fitting in with this music that I really how we've approached this. So let's rework that. I think it goes both ways for sure.
Hmm. Did you bring the same template that you used for the first album into the second album, or had stuff changed a little bit to whatever
Yeah.
end?
Definitely things change. So the first one was a be like a bedroom record more or less. And just spent a lot of time doing takes and like, okay, what is this? Want to add harmonies and I mean it's pretty minimal on its instrumentation, but it was thought out, And then the second record is when I booked real studio time, um, and had other players. So like it was a cast of some of my favorite Philadelphia musicians. And also my friend Nathan Bowles, who lives down here in Durham, came up and played drums. So that was like more of a traditional approach to, like, okay, we're gonna track the rhythm section, get the drums and bass. And so that one I was my first like real studio experience and building a record in that way. Um, and then I had a different approach for my third record, similar, but also approached it more like a live, collaborative kind of record instead of like, okay, now we're having this person come in to do an overdub. It was a different vibe to it. But that's when I also started working with Mode Sound was like on my third record, the Omaha crew. So yeah.
Is the energy surrounding the album in general with all these albums, is it the same energy that you're trying to strive for, or is it just circumstantial to each release that this has this tone and this has this feeling and whatever it may be?
Yeah, I think it's circumstantial for sure. Like I feel like this Bite Down I think was really joyful and um that one was we did a lot of live tracking and not just rhythm section, not just, drums and bass. Like there are a couple songs that the whole band were just playing live other than vocals. Like that's just the take. And so that kind of like immediacy and joyfulness, um, it's kind of a new place, not so much the immediacy, but like
Joyfulness.
the joyful sad song. Even though, there may be difficult topics and there's some always like sorrow to things, but yeah, overall it's there's just like a very o open-heartedness that I think all of us playing together, like we, sat in a circle for a lot of it and um yeah, just did that kind of tracking and not as many overdubs. Um, but I think that can only really come when out of us having we tour had been touring together, our relationships. We were so close with each other at that point that, you know, we could do that. We could approach it in that way because
Mm-hmm.
of the bonds that we had,
Right.
um, that we have, I should say.
Is it easy for you to bring the original feeling of a song into the studio and put it into the recording, or is something always lost within the translation between
Hmm.
one stage to the next?
Some, sometimes lost, but other times gained.
Mm.
There are definitely songs that I'm like, okay, I know the words might seem like a bummer, but this is not a bummer song, so I don't want to go that route. Like I don't want it to be sad. So let's play it up tempo. Let's put some like heat on it. Um, and then there's other times where like, yeah, we do approach it or like have this moment where we played something that I wasn't really expecting it to take that form. And it it's like this is it. This is perfect. This is how we all interpreted. We took this little seed that I brought in and made, a beautiful growing living thing from it. Like On Tonight, that was, the first song off of this record. That's one that kind of took on a shape that I wasn't fully expecting it to be. And I love it. I can't really picture it any other way.
Yeah, but I mean, could you picture the shape of it that it came to be when you were writing it though? Was that even
No,
on the table? Yeah.
I mean, I didn't, especially for this record, other than like vibes of like happy, sad, or like up or down, like I really didn't want to put too much, come in with too many preconceived ideas for it because I wanted it to feel like a band record.
Hmm.
And so with that, I'm like leaving that space for other people to bring their ideas and their energy into. Um, but I hadn't pictured it being so poppy, either other than like,
The
the
poppiness that
melody.
you originally brought into it, right?
Yeah, I mean there was
Or
some
that
that,
was already there. Yeah.
yeah, like it's kind of like in the melodies a little bit, but I was playing it, a little more like laid back and like had a finger picking pattern to it, and it just became like, there's like synths on it, and it's like all shimmery, and it's great. Um but yeah, that's something that I think only could have happened bringing it to the group and us taking it in a whole different direction.
Right. Um, when you're performing live, do you want an audience to walk away with a different sense of a song that they've already heard, or do you want it to incorporate what they've heard on their computers while driving in at their friend's house, wherever it may be that they know the song from, or a little bit of both within the same show?
Hmm.
Maybe there's some same elements that you know and some other ones that are new or gonna be new.
Yeah, we definitely don't play it's not a copycat of the record. Like we play with tempos. When we tour, it's mostly, just a four piece. And so there's already limitations into your instrumentation. Like obviously you're not going to have layers of something, or you don't have cello. So it's never like a verbatim to what you
One for
hear.
one, yeah, copy.
Yeah, and also, we'll do transitions into songs. I mean, I guess I've never really thought about it, in the terms how you asked it, but yeah, I think I want people to have a different experience. Like it's live. I want them to feel invigorated by the music, and to feel that, to feel our sense, what we're putting out there, like this love and joy and energy that we're putting out to the room. And that's always my goal, is that people will come away just feeling good. And not necessarily specific to any song, but I want them to feel that, feel the vibrations.
Is that what you're searching for when you go to see a show as well? From the
Yeah,
opposite point of view?
yeah, I want to, yeah, have an adventure to some degree, or like feel moved. And I yeah, I like raw energy from a performance, and even if it's super minimal stuff, um I guess whatever form that takes, but yeah, some kind of being moved. Because if I've been to show concerts and things of bands that I love, but walk away just kind of like, I don't know, I kind of just would in that their presentation, I'm not going to name names, but they're all spaced out on stage, like not interacting. It's kind of like, well, why am I seeing this live? I don't feel this over, I want to be washed over.
Sure. Yeah.
Um,
We've all
so
I think everybody's been let down a time or two with the
yeah,
especially with bigger acts,
yeah.
which is kind of weird if you think about it that way. You go, they're a bigger act,
I
and
just I I wonder, and just like coming, with being on the road, you have so many dates, and I think that there becomes a certain degree of pressure to do your thing at a high level. And
because of the expectation, perhaps.
I think the expectation, yeah. And so create, when you have that environment, that kind of pressure, I think having those little perfect parts and all your gear and your in-ears and all the stuff, like it can maybe create a little environment where you're not connecting with each other
Mm.
anymore. I mean, I don't know, this is just observation sometimes.
No,
Sometimes
I feel like there is something there for sure. Do you think that strictly off of the vibe of the audience, if it was more relaxed, that would fix that, or at least curtail some of the issues?
I don't know. I really don't.
Because you can glean the vibe from an audience when
Oh,
you're
for
on
sure.
stage, right? Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and it's often something we talk about, like after show, we're like, "Oh, that was weird," or like, "That was awesome," And sometimes it's like very much like how an audience is interacting. I mean, I definitely think that's an element of it. I think that there's other things too, like if it's maybe a big act that's been playing together for years, maybe it's just a job at a certain point.
Mm.
Um, other,
Do you perceive your music in that way as just being a job or
no.
being a job
I
at some
mean,
point?
I do, I do, I'm serious about it, and that I'm like, oh, I'm working, and there are the stresses and the pressures that come along with that. Um, and wanting to be responsible, and I care a great deal of, I know people are coming and spending their money, and so I take it very seriously, but I also work another job. I haven't hit a level where I can do this uh only music. Um, and so it it's very important to me, and I view it as like I'm working, but it's not like it's just a job. I see it as something else. It's a calling. I don't know. It's a it's something, yeah. I put a great deal of effort into, but I don't know, it's more spiritual for me than just saying it would be a job.
Would that sense of spirituality or seriousness be driven up quite a bit if you were just solely focusing on music, or would some of the magic be lost within that if that if you're just focusing on music every day?
I don't know. I mean, I do focus on it a little bit each day. But I don't know. I've never had the opportunity to only be an artist solely. Um, so who knows? Maybe it would get more extreme, and or I don't know. I would hope that w if I ever got to that point where it just felt like a job, that I don't know, I maybe be time to stop doing it, because I feel like it's like the opposite of my goal with making music and art. Um,
Is it, would there ever be a finishing line with music, or is it something that's just deeper than that? that it's there's never a,
I think
a
it's
goal line.
I think it's deeper. I'm a lifer. And there, we all a lot of musicians I know, and we everybody talks about like quitting and giving up because it in our climate of whatever our current world is, it's very hard to survive doing art. That's why I have other jobs. That's why um so many people I know, like you get older, you have kids, you can't do it, you all these other things, but for some reason some of us still keep going, and it's because it's bigger than that. I don't know. That's I'm called to be an artist, and even if it's just one person that messages me to tell me how much a song helped them, that's hopefully I hang on to that as being the real reason and motivation. Um, because I care about people. I care about the well-being of people. I feel like music is a powerful way to connect. Um, it's powerful for me on a personal level. And yeah, I don't see there being an end point. I don't know, you know, to what level I'll be continuing to do things like as you get older. It's, hopefully I'll be like Michael Hurley and play a show up until the day I die.
Yeah,
But, you know, there's a lot of other external things that influence that as well. So,
it's kind of a dark way to end, but it is a night. We're ending it on a good note. You're
yeah,
not gonna end music.
no.
Um, Rosie, I really appreciate you sitting down with me today and
Oh,
and,
of
and
course.
chit chatting. I really do appreciate it.
Thank
But
you so much.
yeah, but before I let you go, we got some promo to do here. We got some
Okay.
stuff we got to sell. We got some news that we got to let the people know about. So, Bite Down, which we touched upon, is
Hmm.
out now via Merge Records. That's who's putting it out.
Yep.
It's streaming everywhere, wherever people get their music. That's where they could find it. Along with all the other releases from the first one to this last one and everything in between. And people could find the vinyl for Bite Down through mergerecords.com.
Hmm.
That's the best place, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right on. Or I get at your Bandcamp as well.
My Bandcamp, yeah.
Mhm.
Or
Which
you'll
is
hopefully or ask at your local record store if
I,
they don't have it in. Yeah.
yeah, start at the local record store, of course. But if they don't have it there, it can be found at rosalie.bandcamp.com. And there's some other merch there as well.
Hmm.
Shirts and CDs and such.
Yep. Shirts, hats, bags, all the fun
Books,
little stuff you make.
groceries, whatever
Yeah.
people need is there, right?
Yeah. Yep. Little grocery
Costco,
store.
Costco membership cards,
That's
um,
right.
sunglasses, whatever people need, that's where they could find it. It's the best place for them to find it, right?
That's right.
Um, and your website, Rosalie Music dot com rather, it has all your current dates and upcoming dates.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's a good place to go check. And there's usually ticket links there, right?
Yep. I'll be all ticket ticket links to everything. Yep.
That is so smart. Sometimes it's very hard to find the link to the tickets.
Right.
But not for you. You make it easy for people. So that's easy to
Pink
find you
button that
there.
says tickets. So
Right there. Um, and if you're not so much of a website person, you're more of an Instagram person, that's also a good place to keep up to date with news and shows and tours and all this good stuff, right?
right. Rosalie Music.
At
It's
Rosalie
there's
Music. So
no E on Rosalie. Rosali. So
I appreciate you saying that. Yeah. So keep that in mind with everything that we just said before. And this is out Friday. Is there any like upcoming gigs or anything else we need to plug that we missed?
if you're in New York, putting on a show for the Blue Note Jazz Fest, and that'll be at National Sawdust on June 12th.
Ooh.
And I'll be doing an Edsel Axle set, which is my solo guitar project, as well as a Rosalie set that's solo, but I have the band from Seattle JRCG. They're an awesome ensemble, and so they'll be at that show. So ticket link there. And then other than that, we're doing some festivals, full band this year, and a little West Coast tour. So if you're on the West Coast, come see us in
And
August.
you'll be posting about that, right?
Yes.
Again, at Rosali Music. And that ends with an I.
Yes.
So yeah. Well, Rosalie, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Well, thank
Again,
you
Bite Down is out now via Merge Records. Please go buy it and stream it.
for having me.
Thank you. I'm gonna stop recording this and I'll talk to you in a minute, okay?